Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metzler. I couldn't be more excited to have tonight's guest, photographer Elliot Landy, on the show for the entire hour tonight. Elliot is one of the first music photographers to be recognized as an artist. His images of Bob Dylan and the band, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Van Morrison, no relation, Richie Havens, and many others documented the music scene in the last 1960s that culminated with he being the official photographer for the 1969 Woodstock Music Festival. His photographs have appeared on the covers of such magazines as Life, the Saturday Evening Post, and Rolling Stone, among others. He is the author of 6 books, including Woodstock Vision, The Spirit of the Generation. His new book, The Band Photographs 1968-1969, was recently published on the Backbeat Books imprint and is available at finer bookstores everywhere. With no further ado, I would like to welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour from his home in Woodstock, New York, the Matthew Brady of rock and roll, Mr. Elliot Landy.
That's so nice. Matthew Brady of rock and roll. That's cool, actually.
Well,
you know, sometimes I feel like that. In those days, in order to do photography, you had to schlep a lot of stuff around on horseback and in wagons and set up huge tripods and big cameras and have all kinds of liquid chemistry with you and so on. And I feel like my life and career has been pretty much like that, even though I didn't have, even though the physical aspect, the physical particulars were changed. The actual struggling and pushing uphill all the time remain the same.
You know, it's funny because and the other thing I think you would have in common with Matthew Brady, the great Civil War photographer, photoing all the stuff you did in the rock and roll world in the 60s and 70s was occasionally you probably had to duck a few incoming bullets as well.
I had a few incoming bullets, you say?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. My first response is to say no, but then I think about it, and I think that's the reason I left the music business, because bullets started to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't want to be in front of bullets. I want, it was always the softness of life that appealed to me. That doesn't mean it wasn't hard, and doesn't mean I didn't struggle. It just means that I felt that what I was struggling against was worth it. So when you're fighting against a business, let's say, or people who are running, because it's not the business you're fighting, it's really people.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big flaws in today's thinking is that we don't blame individuals for what corporations do. It's a corporation. It's not. It's the individual, it's the executive who decides to be part of that. And who decides to act like that. And the idea of the corporate shield is no responsibility. And that's one of the problems with society and culture today, is that nobody wants to take not nobody, that's not fair, that many people don't take personal responsibility for what business does.
Well, you had a very interesting kind of a doorway in a Bob Dylan that the door seemed shut at the time, but what you were photographing the tribute to Woody Guthrie at the Carnegie Hall with Dylan and the band, and Albert Grossman, Dylan's manager at the time and for the next several years, wanted to take your camera and your film, but you worked around it. So let's talk about that and move on.
Okay. You want me to tell the funny story?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny now. I was just starting my career as a photographer. I had established my skill set, and I wanted to do something to try and stop the Vietnam War. So I was photographing peace demonstrations, working with an underground newspaper, and not getting paid anything at all, just contributing it. And I saw that Bob Dylan was going to be playing at the Woody Guthrie Memorial Concert, and it was the first time he was going to appear in public for over a year. And I called Bob Dylan's manager's office, which was Albert Grossman, and got a pass and got 2 free tickets. And the tickets were, of course, impossible to get.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got 2 free tickets, and I identified myself as a photographer and so on. And then when I got to Carnegie Hall, I brought a girlfriend with me, and I got to Carnegie Hall, and the guard says, no, you can't. He sees my camera bags, and he says, you can't take pictures in here. And I said, well, I'm a official photographer. I am a photographer for an official newspaper here. I got a police press pass and a letter from Bob Dylan's manager and blah, blah, blah. And the guard says, I don't care what, you can't come in here with cameras. So we went back outside, and I checked half my cameras, and I gave 1 camera and 1 lens to my girlfriend to put in her purse, and we walked back inside and sat through most of the concert until Dylan came on. And then I took out the camera, and I started taking pictures, trying to be as discreet as possible, waiting for the loud parts of the music so I wouldn't disturb anybody as well as wouldn't be noticed.
Right.
And I see off to the side, so we got like 8th row center seats, really some of the best seats in the house. And I see off to the far side of the theater by the exit door, this woman is waving to me with 2 hands, telling me to stop photographing, and I make believe I don't see her. And then she gets a guard, and he starts doing the same thing, and I make believe I don't see him, and I keep taking the pictures. And then at some point, the guard starts to walk around the front of the auditorium to come get me. So I didn't want to make a scene, of course, and I then looked over at him like I'd just seen him for the first time. I said, oh, okay. But I tried to keep sitting there, and he kept insisting that I come out. So I knew they were going to try and take the film from me. So I took the roll out of the camera, and I gave it to my girlfriend, and I said, don't give this up at all. And I put another roll in the camera rather. And then I went out the side door, and where the guard was telling me to go, and I'm met by probably 15 people out there. And in the middle of this is this man, Albert Grossman. I didn't know who he was at that point, but I quickly found out when I said, well, Dylan's manager gave me permission, and he said, I'm his manager.
And he was a big guy, wasn't he?
He was imposing,
Yeah.
I don't know how big he was, really. I guess he's probably about the same height as me, maybe a little taller. Or I don't really know. But his manner was very imposing. Big stentorian voice, and a man who took control of situations. It was that type of personality.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a double alpha or something like that.
Right.
He said to me, you're not allowed to take pictures. And I said, I had permissions and so on. And then he said to me, give me that film. He says, you got to give up the film, And I said, no, I'm not going to give up the film. And the woman who had originally pointed me out was in the back of the crowd surrounding me. And she's saying, and I hear her saying, he switched the film or something like that, or his girlfriend has the film. She saw me make the switch, right? But it's kind of noisy, and there's music playing,
sure.
Very loud, some of the greatest music in the world, right? And we're dealing with this nonsense.
And the place must have been packed.
What? Oh, it was completely sold out. It
Yeah.
was sold out immediately. Even without the internet, it got sold out. So every time that she starts to say, she's got the film, meaning my girlfriend, I got louder, and I said, you can't have this film, just so he wouldn't hear her talking and so on. And at some point, I hold the camera up to him and say, you can't have this film, because I know he's going to grab the camera, which he does, and he opens up the back and rips the blank film out of it and says, all right, now get out of here, and so on. And so he didn't like me. And I had just begun making the rounds of doing music photography. And I got an assignment to photograph Janis Joplin, who we also managed. And that brought me up to his office again to photograph her. And Albert asked John Simon to get me out of here. He says, get that guy out of here. I can't stand him. He didn't say that to my face, but John years later told me that's what he said. But then, to maybe a month or 2 months later or something like that, I'm photographing Janis. I guess it was probably less than a month. I'm photographing Janis at the Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland studio.
On A Street, right?
Yeah, but it was called, I'm blanking on the name of the club.
Yeah, it was when I was
Generation.
reading.
It was Generation.
Yeah, when I was reading your book, we've got Elliot Landy on the line. He's got a great new photo book out called The Band Photographs 1968-1969, and I was reading about that. I had been at Electric Ladyland years back, somehow, on a bit of a tour, or somebody was playing there, but it was a club before it became a recording studio. I did not know that until I read your book.
It was Club Generation, yes. Okay. So Albert comes to me and taps me on the shoulder while I'm photographing, and it's hugely noisy in there. It's a low-ceiling kind of club. And he kind of waves me back to the back of the to the back of the crowd, the back of the audience, and he brings me into a broom closet, and I have no idea what's going on. I wasn't afraid of being physically attacked. He didn't give off that vibe,
right?
I didn't know what was happening, and he says to me, "Are you free next weekend?" And I say, well, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I wasn't. And he said, well, we have this new band that we want photographs of. And I said, oh, what's their name? And he said, I don't know. They may not have a name. They may not take a name. They're the Crackers, and there was no name. There's very, very indefinite answers. But what I want to say about this is that, and the reason that he reached out to me was that he had seen my photographs of Janis, and he really liked them, I guess. And he let go of the negativity that he had towards me, and it was really a good amount of negativity because nobody stands up to him. Nobody, goes against Albert, that kind of thing.
Elliot, we're going to pick this up in the next segment of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We've got great rock and roll photographer Elliot Landy on the line. We're going to be speaking with him for the entire show in his time in Woodstock with the band, Dylan, and more after these messages.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake would like to say Pinigigi for all your support these last 3 years. We discuss national and local Native news and events. Weekly correspondents bring us updates and information from all over Turtle Island.
Native Roots Radio I'm Awake is supported by Robbins Kaplan, LLP, dedicated to redefining high-stakes litigation representation in Indian country.
Saturdays live 1 to 3. Free Leonard Peltier.
Tom Hartman here telling you that solar energy isn't just for environmentalists. Switching to all-energy solar is actually perfect for reducing your carbon footprint while also saving money on your monthly electric bill. The fact that solar panels cause no earth-harming emissions while it's producing energy is a bonus. Who in the world could object to that? But they can also help you save money month after month for decades. And they do it with a clean footprint. So go green and start saving money today by visiting allenergysolar.com.
Hey, it's Brett from FYI Politics for Zero Res. They know nothing is more important than your health during these stressful times. For years, Zero Res has committed to providing safe cleaning solutions for you. It's why their cleaning process has achieved the highest ratings in independent laboratory tests. They understand cleaning is part of preventing and will always follow CDC guidelines. Right now, you can get 3-room Zero Res clean starting at only $129, plus an additional 10% off when you clean both your carpets and your air ducts. But you have to mention AM 950 when you call 952-ZERO-RES or ZeroResMinnesota.com.
Save an extra 7.5% during Warner Stellian's free tax rebate event. Choose from the best brands at our guaranteed unbeatable price. Then save 7.5% more with our exclusive tax rebates. You'll save hundreds on laundry pairs, dishwashers, refrigerators, and kitchen suites. And trusted fast free delivery and haul away are still free. Plus, qualified buyers can choose 18 months interest-free financing. Guaranteed unbeatable appliance savings with exclusive tax rebates from Warner Stellian.
If you're someone that counts on AM 950 to bring you the latest in progressive politics, news, and talk, remember, we can't do it alone. Support our many great advertisers and let them know you heard about their business on AM 950. If you don't know who to talk to, simply write AM 950 on your receipt. AM 950 is supported by small, local businesses, so you're not only helping us and those businesses, but our local economy as well. For a complete list of our sponsors, log on to am950radio.com.
You are back with the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. On the line, rock and roll photographer Elliot Landy, who is just telling us a little bit of his first meetings with legendary rock and roll manager Albert Grossman. So continue that thread. So with Albert Grossman.
Yes, so I always honor him in my mind as being able to let go of the negativity that he had towards me, and that's such an important trait in life, to be able to let go. Anytime you feel yourself being negative or disliking something, it's just, I don't need that as part of my thought pattern. And certainly because he did that, he's just very gracious to do that. And of course, I'm grateful to him, but so are, I imagine, the band, and so is Dylan for the good work that I did for them and with them and so on. And it was really like it deserved to be let go of.
Right.
and so on. And he was able to do that. And I really understood what a powerful man is. It's a man who can really go in the direction that things need to go in to have a positive outcome, rather than holding on to patterns and holding on to certain stone-based ways of thinking and being.
Well, there is no doubt that at that time, Bob Dylan would have never, in the mid to late 60s, achieved his worldwide acclaim if it wasn't for the bulldog that Albert Grossman was, and representing and standing up for his artists.
Yeah, I think he was responsible for changing the nature of the record business, because he took control of the A&R. He took control of which songs are going to be played, how they're going to be recorded, who's going to record it, and so on, for Dylan. And I believe that he put the artist in control. And I'm not a historian in this, but I believe that he was the first one to ever do this. And this really changed how the music business is artist-controlled and artist-driven and so on, unlike the movie business, which is not, which is controlled by people who finance things. They have the ultimate say. But in this case, in the music business, the artist seems to have the ultimate say.
Now, where were you? Were you living in New York City at the time when Albert Grossman invited you up to photograph the group of men that became the band?
Yes. So he said to me, go up and see the guys in the band, in the band, not the band, in the band. And they were recording in a recording studio in Manhattan, in New York City. And I was living in Manhattan at the time. And I went up and I met Robbie in the waiting room of the mixing, of the recording studio, whatever it was. And then he looked through the pictures and he said, these are really not what we're looking for, but I see that they're very good, because I think I brought up performance pictures for him like that, and so he brought me into the mixing room, and I believe that it was Chest Fever that I was listening to. I walked in this wall of sound, and the introduction to Chest Fever was on the amplified studio speakers and so on. The best sound you can.
Well, and that magnum opus organ intro by Garth Hudson, I mean, it's legendary.
Yeah, and so that kind of blew me back out of the room.
Right.
I was really moved by it, of course, And then basically I flew up to Toronto, and what they wanted to do was honor their parents. In the 60s, the essence of the 60s was change. Let's do things differently. Let's stop let's stop the wars that are happening now and have happened in the past, and let's stop bias, and let's stop bigotry, and let's make everybody equal and the same. And it was the beginning of the environmental movement and so on. And let's do things right, in other words. And in order to do things right, you have to discard what's wrong. You have to discard the past. past. And there was a lot of thinking in the 60s about against your parents.
Right.
You know, I don't want to do the things the way my parents did because they messed everything up, and so on. And so even to the point where people are cursing out their parents and rejecting them totally and disappearing and never contacting them again and stuff like that. And the guys in the band said, this is ridiculous. He said, we owe who we are today to the kind of parents we had. They cared for us, they nurtured us, they brought us up, they paid for our educations or whatever they did, you know. They clothed us and they loved us and so on. So we want to honor them. So they were really saying, hey, to the culture, let's not go too far with this I hate my father stuff. That was also psychology as well. You know, you have to escape the bad stuff your parents did to you. And they're saying, you know, there's a lot of good things here also. Let's focus on the good stuff. So they wanted to include a photograph of their family, of their parents and their relatives in the album to say thank you for bringing us to this point in our lives. And so that's why I was in Toronto to do, all of them except for Levon were Canadian. So that's where their relatives were. And Levon's parents were supposed to fly up, but they weren't able to. So in the picture, you'll see he's holding a picture frame showing his parents.
And that was on the back of their first record, Music from Big Pink.
Music from Big Pink. But it was on the inside.
It was on the inside, right.
Originally, it was a gatefold, yes.
And now, was that at Rick Danko's uncle's farm? Or?
Yeah, yes, it was.
Well, you know, when you look back at that time, and, you know, geez, I was 13 in 1968, but along with that, you know, that whole rock and roll generation creating the new world, it was awash in psychedelia, which really, with the drugs and the whole mind expansion thing, in a way, it almost excluded the history of the family at the time. And I think that's what was interesting about starting to see some of your original pictures of the band was like, you know, if you looked at Cream, Disraeli Gears, I mean, it's all psychedelia and bell bottoms and beads and even Hendrix. And here you have this band, 5 guys, 4 from Canada that really started what's now known as Americana music. God bless the Canadians, embracing their family. And you would not for a million years thought you'd see a modern rock and roll band doing that. So that was beautiful stuff, Elliot. So while you were doing the photographs that were included on Music from Big Pink and other rock and roll stuff, were you doing any of the other stuff outside rock and roll at the time?
Oh, yeah. I was basically working with underground newspapers and trying to help stop the Vietnam War by showing the peace demonstrations. There were large peace demonstrations happening in New York City that got almost no coverage whatsoever, maybe a third of a column on page 8 of the New York Times, when there were thousands and thousands of people in the streets and so on. So I wanted to photograph these and show them to people and try and make people aware that the war was no good and there was no reason to be fighting it. We were hurting both our own soldiers as well as the people we were attacking overseas, and that we were just doing the wrong thing. So I was active in that. And then I discovered rock and roll music by chance, really. I was walking along the street one night after we put the newspaper.
You know what, Elliot? Let's save that for the next segment. But I know I was looking at your website today, and you've got a lot of the photos from the civil rights struggle, Allen Ginsberg protests, and whatnot. And is that at landyvisions.com?
Landyvision singular. Yeah. .com. Like television, but Landy.
Okay, landyvision.com. Elliot Landy for the whole show tonight in the Wall of Power Radio Hour. More with Mr. Landy after these messages.
Rudy Luther Toyota is caught up in the coronavirus just like the rest of us, but they also understand many people still need their vehicle running smoothly. Rudy Luther Toyota has their service department open for business, but don't worry, they have the social distancing requirement down. They're working with a reduced staff who are constantly sanitizing and cleaning all touch points as they go. Feel free to use the outside vehicle drop-off, and you can pay remotely to limit exposure. And of course, you get Rudy Luther's top-notch guaranteed service. We'll get through this together. For social distancing with a smile, it's Rudy Luther Toyota on 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
They really appreciate what she's done as a sister as well as a soldier and, supporting their country.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join.
Family members that are soldiers in the Army National Guard inspire and influence, setting a path for others.
It's validating knowing that, I kind of did my part to make sure this is what they actually wanted and that they feel the same way I do. I'm really proud that we get to help shape the future, and I know that my sisters are going to be amazing soldiers.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share in.
A lot of pride, and they're just out there doing something every day and then serving their country as well.
I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture.
Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Minnesota Army National Guard. Aired by the Minnesota Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is Ellie Krug from Ellie 2.0 Radio on Mondays from 7 to 8 a.m. Many listeners know that I founded Human Inspiration Works, LLC, which trains on human inclusivity and on how to be welcoming to diverse humans. Today, organizations of all sizes find that they need to train team members on diversity and inclusion. I can do that. Many say that my trainings change the way they see the world. I'd love to help make your organization more welcoming. For more information, go to humaninspirationworks.com. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about the joy of live fire cooking. Cooking over a live fire is the oldest and most basic form of cooking.
What's new is in the way a fire is handled and its heat is managed.
It's easier to experience and enjoy the smell and taste of food cooked over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs live fire grills, fire pits, and ovens. Let us help you experience the smell, the taste, the fun of cooking with fire.
Pizza was first made and is still best made in an open fire oven. The radiant and conductive heat of a live fire is unmatched for wood roasting and baking artisan breads too.
Come see the many ways you can cook over a live fire.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
With your AM 950 weather, this is Eric Nelson. Tonight, a chance of rain or snow before 11 p.m. with lows around 32 degrees. Sunday, a chance of rain around noon with a high of 46 and a low of 34. Monday, partly sunny with a high of 49 and a low of 36. With the state closing bars and restaurants for dining in, it's especially important that you support our Eat Local Minnesota restaurants. They feature high-quality local foods, and lots of them have delicious menu options for takeout service. And support Twin Cities restaurants like Nightingale, located at 26th and Glendale in Minneapolis. Find the takeout menu at nightingalempls.com.
You are back with the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. On the line for the entire show, the amazing photographer, Elliot Landy. Elliot, at the end of the last set, you were telling us about how you got into the rock and roll photography world. And you were walking along the street. Take it from there.
Yeah. I've been working with underground newspapers, taking taking pictures of anti-war demonstrations. And one night we put the newspaper to bed, and I was walking along 2nd Avenue, and I see this theater marquee that says Country Joe and the Fish Light Show. And I was with 2 other guys from the paper, and I said, "What's happening? What is that?" No idea what that was. So I went over to the box office and got inside because I had a police trespass. And I walk in and I see this incredible wall of light and hear this incredible sound from these big speakers. And it was like amazing to experience this.
And this was Fillmore East, right?
It's what? No, this was the Anderson Theater.
Oh, okay.
It was about 2 weeks before the Fillmore East opened.
Okay. Because the Fillmore East was on 2nd Avenue, too, I believe.
That's right. The Fillmore East was right across the street from this, but it hadn't opened yet. Okay. So these concerts, these rock and roll concerts, I don't know what happened before I saw the Country Joe concert, but I saw Country Joe, and then a week or 2 later, Big Brother and the Holding Company. I was just completely taken by this experience of light shows and music. And at the concerts, the musicians were as much against the war, more anti-war than the audience was. And the whole thing was really a countercultural event. And I felt that by taking pictures of these concerts, which, like, after 2 or 3 weeks, the Fillmore East opened, and that's where I photographed Hendrix and the Doors and Janis Joplin some more, and so on. By taking pictures at these concerts, I felt like I was inviting people to become part of this new culture, of this new idea of living freely rather than living within the constraints of what we were supposed to be, suits and ties and uncomfortable shoes, basically, and doing things that were not necessarily conscious things. You were trying to make money for money's own sake without being aware of what you were doing that for, which is, of course, as we all know, a super problem today. And all the bad energy from that is spreading around the world, in my opinion. I think it comes from the way people think about things.
We've got Elliot Landy on the line. He's got a great book out called The Band, Photographs 1968 and 69 on the Backbeat Books imprint. So you ended up, we're kind of around the same, we're talking, 68 and 69. How did you get the gig as the official photographer of the Woodstock Festival, which you put a book out called Woodstock Vision, The Spirit of a Generation around that? Tell us about how that hooked up, and tell us what the hell was Woodstock like.
Well, the book Woodstock Vision, The Spirit of a Generation, I first wrote in 1994. And it was published then, and then I did an interactive CD-ROM of it with Panasonic Interactive Media in 1997 that released the book and the CD. And then I redid it in 1999. Was it 99? Oh, my goodness. I should know this, yeah.
Time's flying.
That's right, yes. Right, it was 30, yes. It was the 40th anniversary. 2009. Oh, my goodness. I redid it in 2009 for the 40th anniversary, and I doubled the size of it. But the name of it is Woodstock Vision, The Spirit of a Generation. And a lot of people who are not interested in the Woodstock Festival pass the book by because they think it's about the Woodstock Festival. But the Woodstock Festival is only half of it. The rest of it is really all the stories I'm telling now about the underground movement and my photographs of Dylan and the band. And it's a really good book about being part of that movement in the 60s to try and make the world a better place. And rock and roll music was one way of doing that because it caused people to forget who they were. It was really what meditation does to you. When you meditate, you forget what's tying you to real-world experience, and you can go someplace else and be someplace else. And rock and roll music in those days with the concert experience and smoking grass at the concerts and so on was that kind of spiritual experience, really. It wasn't about freaking out at a concert. It was really about going through a life-changing kind of experience.
So unlike Bill Clinton, you guys were actually inhaling.
Totally, and that was the point of it.
Elliot, what was...
Now, you asked me the way I got to Woodstock. So doing that work led to photographing the band and then photographing Dylan and my work, and then Van Morrison for the Moondance album cover. And my work got pretty well known and so on. So then when Mike Lang, who produced the Woodstock Festival, needed a photographer, he was also living in Woodstock, and we knew each other casually just through friends. And we would hang out and talk sometimes. And he came up to my house on his motorcycle one day and said to me, I'm producing a concert in August, and do you want to photograph it? And I said, well, who's going to be there? And he named off some of the famous bands that were going to be there. And I said, sure, absolutely. And he says, okay, that's great, and took off. And as I write in my book, it wasn't even a handshake.
Right. Wow. The good old days.
And so that's how I got to be the photographer of, and then there was another photographer, Henry Diltz, also, who they brought on board as well.
Didn't Henry do that classic, that first Crosby, Stills and Nash cover? Where they're sitting on the couch?
Yes, he did, right, yes.
And
he's done a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of the early Eagles stuff. Hey, so when did you move to Woodstock? I've got Elliot Landy on the line, great photographer. He's got a new book out called The Band, Photographs 1968 to 1969. Yeah, when did you move to Woodstock, Elliot?
Well, while I was photographing the band, first we went to Toronto, and then after that, I went up to what they called the Big Pink, which was a house in West Saugerties, New York, and we got on really well. And they said to me, "Come on up anytime you want." And so we did the first shoot, and there were really gorgeous photographs in it. But they said, it's not really what we want. It's not the right thing. One of the pictures was a photograph of the five of them sitting on a bench taken from behind, and you see a pond in front of them. And that was on the cover of Rolling Stone. And that was just what they were talking about, because they explained that they didn't want to be a band with a fancy name like Jefferson Airplane, some kind of weird psychedelic name.
Quicksilver Messenger Service.
Right, yes, that's right, yeah. And on with those great names. They're all beautiful names.
Yeah.
But they didn't want that. They also felt they played such a diverse type of music that they wanted to be free to do whatever kind of music they wanted to do. And they felt if they had a name or if they were known too much, they'd be locked into doing a certain kind of music rather than free to just play music, whatever that came to them. So this picture of them from the back was really perfect to what they were talking about. But they said, but then in the end, they felt it was a little too anonymous, which is understandable, of course.
Right.
So they asked me to come up a second time, and I went up a second time. We took some more pictures, and also the second time after that, they said really good pictures, but not really what we want. So we scheduled the third shoot, and meanwhile I was going back and forth. In other words, I lived in the city, and my darkroom was in the city, so I would go down, I'd develop the film and make proof prints, and bring up proof prints to show them, and then we'd talk about it and so on. So I was spending a lot of time there and really got to like Woodstock. And when I was looking for a larger place in New York City, I realized that I had more friends in Woodstock, felt more comfortable there, liked being there a lot better than I did in the city. So instead of getting a bigger place in New York, I took a house at the end of a dead-end road in Woodstock, built myself a darkroom, and figured I would be up in Woodstock 3 days a week and in New York 4 days a week, and so on and so forth. But slowly that changed around, and I had less and less interest in being in New York City and just began to live full-time in Woodstock.
Now, tell us about you had the band, you had Happy and Artie Traum, two great musicians, Bob Dylan living in Woodstock, but there was a handful of other artists and musicians there. Can you share some of those people you got to be friends with in Woodstock?
Boy, that's a surprise question.
Did Van Morrison live in Woodstock for a while?
Well, okay. Yeah, after I did the band work, he lived in Woodstock for a short time. He moved up there and lived in a house on top of a mountain there, and it was the same house that Garth and Richard from the band had lived in for a while. And I guess he was recording Moondance there. And I got a call from Warner Brothers asking me to go up and photograph him. So I met him, and we became friendly. Didn't spend that much extra time together, but whenever we were taking pictures or looking at pictures or whatever we did, we had a really, really nice, warm relationship. So I would go over there just to hang out a little bit every so often. I don't remember too much of it now.
Did you ever bump into a guy, a fellow I consider my personal Jesus? He's a guy by the name of John Martin, a great folk and jazz singer from...
John Martin, what?
John Martin. He's lived in Woodstock for a while, got to be buddies with Levon Helm, just kind of a personal question. I love John Martin. Just wondering if you ever bumped him.
By sight, I may know him, but by name, I don't recall.
So we've got Elliot Landy, one of the premier rock and roll photographers of our time, on the line from his home in Woodstock. We've got a couple of minutes left. And I've got thousands of questions for you, but what was it like when you were photographing the band at Big Pink? Were you, when they were actually making that music? Was it magic?
Well, they were magic. Because I didn't really hear the music too much. I mean, they actually played what are now known as the basement tapes for me a bit. Because they were making them downstairs, or they had made them downstairs already. But it wasn't about the music for me with them. It was really a personal connection that we all had. I felt very much at home and comfortable with them, and I was very impressed with who they were. They were very wise people. I had known a number of musicians already because of the work I've been doing, and to me they were very special. They were very grounded. They had gone through a lot in life, and they were very nice. Mm-hmm. They were very concerned about being polite to people and not insulting people and so on. And I was very impressed with how considerate they were. They were just as appreciative. They were just as respectful towards the person in the deli who was making a sandwich for them as they were towards a record label executive. And I really found them. There was kind of a chemistry that really works for us. And I also stayed out of the way whenever I photographed. And they said to me, "Come on up, even when you're not photographing. You just come up and stay here if you want." This is Rick and Levon's house, and I just felt really comfortable with them. And whenever I photograph, I stay out of the way. I make sure not to. I don't tell people what to do, and if I miss a picture, so be it. I don't ask them to do it again. So they pretty much can ignore me. I wasn't like a weight on their being when I was there.
We've got Elliot Landy on the other line. We're going to have him on for one more set. More with Elliot after these messages on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Moe's Tax Service, family-owned and operated since 1971, providing a full spectrum of tax preparation and associated services. Think about it. Why would you take your most important financial information to a franchise operation with a cheap basic package that goes up dramatically once you're in the door? You can find out all you need to know about Moe's by visiting www.moestax.com. That's MOHS tax.com. Or call them at 612-721-2026. Don't be a blockhead. Go to the professionals at Moe's Tax Service.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our new show airing on Saturdays from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights to living and aging well. Each week, we provide answers to important questions regarding health care, elder care, end-of-life care, and caregiver support to help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Our station has worked with Barbara from WYSIWYG Web Design for years on everything from logo to print design and especially for developing our website. She does great work and is great to work with, listening to what our goals and design ideas were while offering new, innovative ideas to create the website we are proud of today. Barbara made sure she understood our station, our goals, and our mission before she started working on our site and made suggestions to help control the cost. Plus, she's friendly, which set us at ease. I recommend Barbara at WYSIWYG Web Design because I know she will deliver an attractive, professional website within the budget you have. She is a local independent business that specializes in helping other local businesses achieve their website and design goals. She can work with nearly any budget and create anything from simple sites to robust custom functionality. To find out more about the company AM 950 trusts, go to WYSIWYGWebDesign.com. Spelled out just like it sounds, WYSIWYGWebDesign.com.
You're back with the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. On the other line, from his home in Woodstock, New York, the great rock and roll photographer, Elliot Landy. Elliot, at the end of the last set, you were telling us about how polite the band was, which is really, as a lifelong band fan, it makes me feel so good, and that how they really, considered you almost, I guess, in a way, kind of a member of the band in terms of your access to hanging out with them.
Yeah, they said to me at some point, they said, look, we're not going to let anybody else photograph us, just you, because we don't want to be bothered. They didn't say this, but the idea was that dealing with press and publicity is it's a hassle. You have to make appointments, and strange people come up and they act strangely towards you, and they like my style of photographing. So in a sense, they not in a sense, but they obviously considered me a member of the group. I don't know the band, but a member of the people around them,
the gang
who they were working with. Yeah. So, but you said to your people the great rock and roll photographer. I was never a great rock and roll photographer. I guess some of the pictures I've done of music are considered great rock and roll photographs, but I was always a photographer of people, and or things that I wanted to share. Actually, my inspiration for photography was sharing something that's beautiful, and and when I was with the band, if I hadn't have liked them, I wouldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it. My photography strings are very tightly tuned to my heartstrings, and if I don't like something, I don't take a picture of it. And I just felt so positive about these guys, and so positive about the music they were doing, as well as the culture that we were all representing at the time, the alternative culture that I photographed. That's why my pictures come out so good, I feel, because I'm really connected to the essence of something. And when I got tired of it, after a while, I had done the concert performance pictures, and I dealt with the nice guys in the band and so on, and I don't know, and basically I got tired of being part of that world. It was really the business aspects of it that really pushed me away, because everything was a struggle. Not with the band necessarily. I mean, not with the band, but with the Capitol Records and so on, and other magazines and this and that. It was the business aspect. Had I been really clever, I would have gotten an agent to do all this stuff, but that didn't actually happen for me. So I was pushed away by it, and I don't know if I was pushed away. The business aspect was part of it, but also what was happening was that my art, and I use that word as a verb really rather than a noun. My art was getting diluted and polluted, and I remember taking two incidents. Once I'm taking a photograph, and as I'm taking the photograph, I'm thinking of what the art director wants me to do, what he wants. And this was very destructive to me, because my work is always involved with responding to the moment and being able to change and do whatever I feel like doing. And that's a great feeling, to be able to be connected to yourself and to act on it. That was actually the goal of the 60s, was let's all connect to our inner beings and do what our inner beings really want to do. Let's be happy in life. And the second incident was when I was also taking a picture, and as I was taking it, I was thinking about how I was going to sell it. So the commercial aspect came in on top of, like an umbrella, on top of what I was doing also.
Well, baby needs new shoes, right?
Well, it was a turnoff to me. Yeah. I said, I maybe stop liking photography.
Okay.
Because I lost the connection to essence, let's call it. So I really just stopped doing the music stuff. I didn't want to go to concerts, and I didn't want to get involved with record companies and get jobs and so on. And I took up it took a while. I thought I was going to, I opened up what I thought was going to be, a photography gallery and a painting gallery, because I started to paint also. And I didn't want to show my rock and roll pictures, though. This was in Woodstock. I opened up this gallery. I didn't want to show my rock and roll pictures because I was just really tired of that I had done it. They no longer interested me. They were old stuff already. And I said, well, I'll take pictures of nature. So I went around, I took some pictures of trees and landscapes in black and white. Absolutely terrible. I have a couple of them still existing now. Really bad. It was just something, it was an artificial thing for me. It wasn't like, I camp all the time and I see this beautiful landscape around me and I want to capture it. It was like an assignment in school, go take pictures of nature, and that didn't work for me. Now, from 1999 or so on, I have these gorgeous impressionist flower photographs. If you look on my website, landyvision.com, you'll see on the front page there's some of the flower pictures, really beautiful stuff. So now I can do nature well. But in those years, it was terrible. So I had opened up this gallery from my photographs. I didn't want to show the rock and roll pictures, and then I discovered. So I was showing my paintings there, and then I discovered spiritual metaphysical books. And I was reading like Edgar Cayce and the Urantia book, it's called, and Gurdjieff and things like that. Although Gurdjieff is not one of my favorites, but he was one of the ones that I remember. And so my gallery became a spiritual bookstore, and I had a reading room for people because I opened the store. The store existed so people could read the information, like the I Ching and the Tao and so on. And so I had a free reading room. You could just go in. There was one little room in the front. You can go in and sit down and read. There were pillows on the floor. And just make yourselves at home. I didn't have coffee, though. So my photography gallery my painting gallery really became a spiritual metaphysical bookstore. And then at the same time, I had a child and my wife had a baby, and my wife and baby became the main themes for my photography. That's what I wanted to photograph, was to share this. This was the new beauty in my life that I was just discovering, and I wanted to share the beauty of mother and child.
Wow.
The beauty of innocence, the beauty of a baby. So that became my theme, really, my full-time theme. So I'm not really a rock and roll photographer. I did that for about 18 months in my life. But I moved on to many different genres since then. Including, I'm going to plug this because it's worth plugging, doing an interactive music video app that I've invented. I've been pursuing this kind of multimedia experience since 1970, and with a vision for doing it. And finally, I've got it in an app, and I expect it'll be released in the next 6 to 9 months or so.
And go ahead.
I have some major music content to go with it. It's a new way of playing music and video together that changes the nature of the experience, is what I can say about it. Film was invented to tell stories, and music is a feeling experience. Music affects a different part of the brain. So in order to play music and film together, as I wanted to do, I had to reinvent the technology, actually. So that's what I've done.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This show was produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brad Knaber, and recorded at the Minneapolis Media Institute. We'd like to thank our guest, Elliot Landy, and like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.